The coastal town of Greyhaven looked expensive from a distance, all glass balconies and manicured hedges, but beneath the polished surface lived a quieter cruelty. Wealth had settled here like a fog, thick and unquestioned, pressing down on anyone who didn't belong. That was why no one noticed the German shepherd tied behind the abandoned marina warehouse, its paws raw, its body trembling against the cold concrete. The dog didn't bark. It didn't fight the rope biting into its neck. It only whimpered softly, each sound thin, desperate and fading. That sound carried farther than anyone expected. Ethan Cross had come to Greyhaven to disappear. 38 years old, recently retired from the Navy SEALs, he lived alone in a weather-beaten rental near the cliffs, far from the beach houses and cocktail parties. His body still carried the discipline of service, lean muscle, measured movements, eyes that never stopped scanning, but his soul was tired. The war followed him home in fragments, half-remembered faces, decisions that echoed too loudly in silence. He avoided crowds, avoided attention. He kept his past folded neatly away, like a flag he didn't want unfolded. The only thing Ethan allowed close was Shadow. Shadow was a Belgian Malinois, sable-coated, sharp-eyed, and impossibly alert despite the gray creeping into his muzzle. He moved like a shadow lived under his skin, always near Ethan's knee, always watching. Shadow had served with Ethan overseas, trained for detection and protection, bonded through moments neither could fully explain. When Ethan left the teams, Shadow left with him. Some bonds didn't end with paperwork. That night, as Ethan and Shadow walked along the lower docks, the wind carried something wrong. Shadow stopped abruptly. His ears snapped forward, body stiffening. A sound followed, weak, rhythmic, barely there. A cry. Not human. Ethan felt it before he understood it. His chest tightened, instincts waking from a long, disciplined sleep. Shadow pulled forward, low growl vibrating through his chest, not aggressive but urgent. Ethan followed the sound past rusted pylons and broken boats until the warehouse loomed ahead, lights glowing faintly inside. Behind it, tied to a steel post, was the German shepherd. The dog's fur was matted with blood and oil. A crude target symbol had been spray-painted onto the concrete near its feet. The rope was tight, cruelly knotted, leaving no room to sit comfortably. When the dog saw Ethan, its eyes widened, not with hope, but with disbelief, as if it had already learned not to expect rescue. Shadow let out a sharp, controlled bark. Ethan crouched slowly, hands visible, voice calm. "Easy, buddy. You're not alone anymore." From inside the warehouse, laughter echoed. Someone wealthy, careless, and bored had made a game out of suffering. And they had no idea who had heard the cry. The man who owned the warehouse was named Victor Hale, though most people in Greyhaven spoke his name softly, if at all. He was a tech investor with more money than patience and a reputation for indulgences that never reached police reports. His parties were loud, exclusive, and protected by donations that smoothed every rough edge. Tonight was no different. Music thumped inside the warehouse, lights flashing against concrete walls, laughter spilling into the night like waste. Ethan untied the German shepherd with deliberate care. The dog collapsed briefly, legs shaking, before forcing itself upright, driven by nothing but survival. Ethan slipped off his jacket and wrapped it around the dog's shoulders, checking injuries with hands that remembered triage. Bruising. Dehydration. Rope burns. No gunshot wounds. Not yet. Shadow stayed close, positioning himself between Ethan and the warehouse without command. His eyes never left the door. "Stay," Ethan whispered, not as an order but a promise. Footsteps approached. A man in expensive shoes stepped out, drink in hand, amusement already curling his mouth. He stopped short when he saw the scene. "What the hell is this?" he scoffed, as if inconvenienced by his own cruelty being noticed. Ethan rose slowly. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't threaten. He simply met the man's eyes, calm and unblinking. "That dog was property," the man sneered. "You just stole something expensive." Ethan's voice was level. "Untie your friends before someone gets hurt." The man laughed and turned back inside, shouting for attention. Moments later, 3 more men emerged, drunk and confident, emboldened by wealth and witnesses. Victor Hale followed last, tall, polished, eyes cold with entitlement. He took in the scene, then smiled. "You don't belong here," Victor said mildly. "Neither do those dogs." Shadow's hackles rose. The rescued shepherd whimpered, leaning into Ethan's leg. Victor gestured lazily, and one of the men raised a handgun, not aimed yet, but present enough to make a point. The night held its breath. Ethan felt the familiar calculation settle in. Distance, angles, timing. He didn't want violence, but he would not allow another second of suffering. The man with the gun stepped forward. Shadow moved instantly, placing himself squarely in front of the injured dog. The German Shepherd tried to stand taller, trembling but defiant. Something in Ethan hardened. He moved. What followed lasted less than 10 seconds. Ethan closed the distance before anyone processed intent. The gun was redirected, stripped away, skidding across concrete. A strike to the wrist. A controlled sweep. Another man went down hard, air driven from his lungs. Shadow lunged only once, not to attack but to block, teeth bared, presence overwhelming. Victor stumbled back, shock finally cracking his composure. Ethan stopped. He didn't pursue. He didn't finish it. He simply stood between the men and the dogs, breathing steady, eyes cold with clarity. "Call your lawyers," Ethan said. "Call the police. Call whoever you pay to clean this up." Then he turned away, leading both dogs into the dark, leaving Victor Hale surrounded by witnesses who had just seen his power fail. By morning, Greyhaven buzzed with attention it hadn't felt before. Word traveled faster than money when fear changed hands. Photos leaked. A video surfaced, shaky, grainy, but clear enough to show a wealthy man stepping backward while two dogs stood their ground beside a stranger who refused to strike again. The narrative Victor Hale had paid to maintain began to fracture. Ethan spent the night at an emergency veterinary clinic an hour outside town. The German Shepherd, now called Atlas by the staff, underwent treatment quietly. He never snapped. Never growled. When Ethan sat beside the kennel, Atlas pressed his head against the bars, eyes closing in exhausted trust. Shadow lay at Ethan's feet, alert but calm, finally allowing rest. The vet, an older woman with tired eyes, looked at Ethan knowingly. "People like that don't stop unless they're exposed," she said. Ethan nodded. He knew. By noon, authorities arrived at the warehouse. Not local police alone, but state investigators. Too many witnesses. Too much digital evidence. Too much money suddenly becoming a liability. Victor Hale was detained for questioning, his confidence evaporating under fluorescent lights. Charges followed quickly: animal cruelty, illegal weapons discharge, private property violations, and worse, uncovered as investigators dug deeper into his protected world. Greyhaven watched quietly. Ethan didn't stay to see the arrest. He returned home with Shadow and Atlas, who rode curled together in the back of the truck, two survivors breathing in sync. The rental house felt different now, not safer but honest. Ethan set up a bed for Atlas, fed him carefully, and sat on the floor between the two dogs as exhaustion finally claimed him. Days passed. Then weeks. Atlas healed slowly, both body and spirit. He followed Shadow everywhere, learning calm from experience rather than training. Shadow, once sharp and restless, softened, his watchfulness shifting into mentorship. Ethan noticed the change in himself too. He slept longer. The echoes faded. One afternoon a knock came at the door. It was a woman from town, hesitant, holding a trembling puppy. She had seen the video. Heard the story. She didn't ask about Ethan's past. She asked if he could help. More followed. Ethan didn't advertise. Didn't charge much. He trained dogs the way he lived, quietly, patiently, with respect. Atlas stayed by his side, a living reminder that survival could turn into purpose. Shadow remained the anchor, steady and present. Greyhaven adjusted. Wealth retreated from cruelty. Silence shifted from fear to reflection. One evening, as the sun sank into the sea, Ethan sat on the porch with both dogs at his feet. The wind carried salt and calm. He rested a hand on Shadow's back, then on Atlas's head. He hadn't come to Greyhaven to fight. But when a cry was heard, he had answered. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. Spring arrived gently in Greyhaven, not with celebration but with permission. People walked their dogs longer. Children lingered near the marina again. The warehouse remained closed, its doors sealed, its emptiness a reminder rather than a threat. Victor Hale's name faded from conversations, replaced by quieter ones about accountability and choice. Ethan stayed. He could have left once the headlines moved on, once the danger passed, but leaving no longer felt necessary. The town no longer pressed against him. It breathed around him. He repaired the fence behind the house. Planted herbs along the porch. Life simplified itself into manageable pieces. Atlas transformed. The German Shepherd gained weight, muscle returning beneath his coat, scars fading into memory. He still startled at loud sounds, still hesitated around ropes, but he trusted Ethan completely. Shadow never left his side during those moments, standing close without instruction, teaching stability through presence alone. The two dogs became inseparable, different histories, same future. Ethan found purpose without searching for it. People came not because he was a Navy SEAL but because he listened. He taught them that dogs responded to consistency, not dominance. That fear created obedience but trust created loyalty. Many left understanding more than they had arrived with. One afternoon a local officer stopped by. Not to ask questions. Just to say thank you. Ethan accepted it with a nod, uncomfortable but sincere. Recognition was never the goal. Responsibility was. As months passed, the video that once sparked outrage became something else. A reminder shared quietly, often without sound. A wealthy man stepping back. A wounded dog standing tall. A man choosing restraint when destruction was easier. Faith found its way into the story not through sermons but through actions. Through the idea that miracles didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they came as a man who heard a cry and chose to answer it. As dogs who refused to abandon each other. As a town learning that silence could be broken. On a cool evening, Ethan sat between Shadow and Atlas, watching the horizon darken. The ocean reflected the sky, endless and calm. He rested his hands on their backs, feeling steady breath beneath his palms. "I think we're home," he said quietly. Shadow's tail tapped once. Atlas leaned closer. Ethan had learned something the teams never taught him. Strength wasn't proven by what you destroyed. It was proven by what you protected, by what you spared, by what you stayed for. The world would always have men like Victor Hale. But it would also have moments, small, fragile moments, where a cry was heard by the right person at the right time. And that, Ethan knew now, was how change truly began.